Welcome back to another episode of the Caffeinated Christian Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Willert, and I'm sitting here with Pastor Mike Wigglesworth and your favorite person, Bradley, the man with no last name, over on the board. How are you guys doing today?
Fantastic.
I'm doing really well. People are not going to realize this. Our listeners aren't going to realize this, but we release episodes very consistently, but this is actually the first time we've all been together at the time of this recording in 2 months?
Yeah. Mike and I have been together. Maybe? Bradley and I have been together. Mike and Bradley have been together, but there's been some vacations, some sickness, all just pulling
Bradley
us
getting
apart.
A job,
Yeah, what is that
all
garbage?
That stuff.
Yeah. What is that garbage? But before I toss over to Mike to talk about the topic, let's discuss the coffee that we are drinking today. Now, today's coffee comes from a special sponsor. I have some friends of the podcast and personal friends. Their names are Paige and Brady that gave us this coffee. They're
Thank you, Paige and Brady.
Yes, they're big. I don't know if I'm allowed to say their last name or not, so I'm not going to. But they're big fans of the podcast, and I was actually in a wedding a few weeks ago, and Brady was one of the groomsmen with me. And I'm sitting in at the church, just kind of talking, and then they just come up and we love the podcast. Here's a coffee we saw that you would like, and I'm like, oh, this is great. And what they have given me is Death Wish coffee.
This is one of my favorites.
The world's strongest coffee. This is what it says on the side. It goes, just powerful, real coffee, no BS. Death Wish coffee sources only high-quality, fair trade certified and organic coffee beans. When you buy fair trade, you're supporting the livelihood of coffee farmers and taking a stand for equality and sustainability. We recommend at least 1 cup first thing in the morning. At least 1 cup.
At least, okay, that's good.
So at least 1.
Not limiting to 1 cup.
Okay. So, but they suggest in total isolation. I don't know why.
We are not in
First thing
total
in the morning,
isolation right now.
in total isolation, basic brews not invited. But it's definitely
recommended for quiet time.
It's definitely a strong coffee.
Yeah,
it is.
I drink this stuff a lot. I like this coffee a lot.
And it's the dark roast ground they gave us, and we appreciate you guys doing that. And we love when.
I've never had the dark roast version though. It's
pretty good.
It is a lot stronger than the regular one.
Yeah.
But I like it.
I'm a few sips in, and I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah, I just appreciate when fans will do that, and it's really cool on their their little scan bar at the bottom. Usually, you have the white covered with the black lines. The white's made out of tombstones. That's kind of creative marketing.
Yep.
But if you want to go learn more about Death Wish Coffee, literally go to deathwishcoffee.com or deathwishcoffee.com/rebel to get the coffee that we are drinking today. So thank you, Paige and Brady. We appreciate you guys so much. Next time you're in town, give me a call. We'll go do something. I'm going to toss this over to Mike to introduce the topic that we are going to be discussing today.
So, at the time of this recording, today is June 29th. So it's the second to last Sunday in June. Last Friday, I remember clearly, I'm at home with our son on Fridays. I work from home. Decided to do a little bit of a kind of a time together with him. Took him out to Tim Hortons. We hung out, had some lunch together. He ate most of my sandwich. I ate very little of it.
He's a very hungry boy.
He is a very hungry kid. He woke up at 5:30 this morning signing for more, meaning he wants to eat.
So what did he eat before?
What did he eat before?
Because he wanted more.
Nothing. He just wants to eat. He's I know this sign gets me food.
He's in the refrigerator secretly, and when you walk by, he closes it. He's like, more. He's like, wait, no.
Right.
I gave away my game.
Yep. No, he just loves, the kid loves to eat. And as we're sitting in Tim Hortons, I see on the TV there that Roe versus Wade has been overturned. Mm-hmm. So all right, this is a milestone. This is a milestone event. This is a landmark decision. Mm-hmm. It's overturning nearly 50 years of legislation that has federally legalized abortion. And so this is something that I've been thinking through and praying through. This coming Sunday is 4th of July weekend, again, at the time of this recording. And so I'm going to be addressing it from the pulpit.
Yep.
And so I want to open it up to discussion for you guys. What was your initial reaction when you saw the news, and what are some of the things that are going through your mind now that you haven't had some time, about a week or so, to process it?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so there's a few things. There's some negative things and there's some positive things. The negative thing was knowing sort of the controversial age of social media and how people on both sides like to react versus actually think. I was, in a sense, worried for property and people and hoping that certain people didn't take advantage of certain legislation and leadership that wouldn't stop maybe killings or burnings or things like that. And we're starting to see that more and more, which is unfortunate. And that's just not a way how to communicate. On the positive side, I as a Christian like the ruling because one, philosophically, I think it was the correct ruling. Two, I think legalistically, according to the constitutional, was the correct ruling. And I read through Alito's released and heard his arguments. I have them in front of me. And I'm glad that this concept and these decisions got another go to look legally and philosophically at what actually happened back in 1973.
Because before this Supreme Court, no other Supreme Court would actually look at it.
No, none.
No.
Right.
None.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there's a good and a bad, and people are going to be like, well, you're biased. And to some degree, yes, but I'm biased based off of argumentation. I think that is correct. So that's what I would.
Yeah.
And we'll go into more into that in this podcast.
And off of what we believe the Scripture clearly teaches about what life is.
Yeah, and it's a fundamental worldview question that we're positing here.
Yep, it is.
Yeah, so for me, I was having an interesting Friday morning. It was my dad's birthday, so I was just kind of like really excited for his birthday party and excited to give him his gift. And the night before, me and my sister were joking. We were like, I got the better gift. And she's like, no, I got the better gift. Like, like sibling rivalry at its finest. And so we're like talking about the gifts that we got him. Neither of us knew what each other got. And we were like, there's no way we can give Dad a better gift. And I'm sitting there on my lunch break, and that the announcement, I got a notification on my phone that Roe v. Wade was ended. And I sat there and I texted my sister and I was like, we both lost. But for me, this has been something that I've been praying about all year long, actually, was that the number of abortions would go down this year because currently there's been over 6 million babies that have been aborted. And so this has been something really close to my heart. And when I got the notification, when I heard about the leaked report that this was going to be overturned, I thought, it would be, there's so many things I would have to say. I would like jump up for joy and stuff like that. But for me, like when it actually happened, it didn't like click that it actually happened. And so I was just so overjoyed that I had no way of expressing it and at all. Like there was like, I just was blank for the day. And then I couldn't stop smiling. But, as for the, so that's like the positives for me. Like that was something I was praying about a lot. And as for the negatives for me, I think that the big negative thing here, and we'll talk about this more, is that it eliminates abortion as a national, as a federal level. And it leaves it to the states to decide, which is great. I think that's how it should have been from the beginning because it's not a constitutional right. So you can't force it on all the states. But that's a bad thing because we live in New York, which is going to make it so that all the states around us that ban abortion all the people are just going to come to New York and have their abortions in New York. So I think that's the negative thing that they have to address is that, people are, there's still going to be abortions, and that just makes our job as Christians in New York a little bit harder.
Yeah. Now for me, when the legislation initially, the news initially broke that Roe versus Wade had been overturned, part of me was like very, very excited. There's that, like Ryan, you were saying, this is a philosophical idea. This is a worldview. Before this was ever co-opted by politics, this is a worldview. This is a theology.
And the court recognized that. And a lot of their arguments why actually go into certain state precedents that weren't there that Roe thought was there, and they argue pretty well that it wasn't, but it belonged to this sort of worldview that they held.
Yeah. And so the fact that I firmly believe as a believer, and morally I am extremely pro-life, I will always believe that at conception that is a human life. I was excited to see that the Supreme Court upheld that, extremely so, and I that view squares with how I read Scripture, that we have been made in the image and the likeness of God, as Genesis 1 verse 27 teaches us. That we've been knit together in our mother's womb, like it says in Psalm 139. God is the one doing that. God is the initiator of that, and we do not have complete autonomy to decide what we do with our bodies, men or women, because it is God who has entrusted these things to us.
Right.
So from that level, very excited. Where I got into I felt some internal tension was just the fallout that was going to come from this.
Yeah.
Agreed.
The fact that this change isn't necessarily going to stop women from getting abortions.
Correct.
It's going to stop them from getting legal abortions in their state, some of them.
It's going to make it tougher.
It's going to make it tougher for them to get legal abortions. And so there's that element of it. And so I've been processing a lot. My wife and I talked about this a lot, and we both really landed on, like, we're obviously excited about this, but we're thinking through and trying to process how do we go forward with this, and how do we, as a pastor, I have to ask this question. As Christians, we should be asking this question: how do I interact with, how do I engage with somebody who is on the other side of this argument, of this issue, and connect with them without getting into this shouting match with them?
Yeah.
So that's what I've been spending the better part of my time really thinking through, to speak to both sides of this issue, because there are people who claim Christ as Savior who are extremely upset about this decision, and others who are overjoyed about it. And so I want to make sure that I fairly speak to both of these sides, even though I firmly fall in the pro-life camp.
Right.
And I'm grateful for the decision.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I think to go with the pro-life, like the pro-life movement, there's still a lot of work to be done as far as abortions go. Like, this isn't like, okay,
this is not the end.
You can hang up the towel now and, like, good job, my good and faithful servant. Like, this is a great win, because it makes it not an everyday norm. Like, abortion being at a federal level made it so that it was just a normal part of life, at least for people growing up in that time period. Like, obviously myself, like growing up, not necessarily in my household, but all my friends, like, all were pro-choice just because, like, they grew up in that world. So now that it's a state level decision, it makes it so that it's not just a norm in our country.
Yeah. Now let me ask you guys this question, because something I really tried to pay attention to is the posts that I saw from friends of mine on Instagram. I'm not on Facebook. I got kicked off. There's a funny story behind that.
It's not funny.
It's not funny.
It's really bad.
It's really bad, but it's kind of humorous, because now, like, I actually love being off Facebook, so it ended up being a blessing in disguise. Someone hacked into my account and posted, like, really nasty things on it, and I got kicked out of Facebook.
Really?
Like, really bad things. Yeah. I woke up one morning.
Go to jail for posting them.
Yes.
What?
Facebook knew it wasn't me. Yeah. Now, I woke up one morning, I was locked out of my account. I can't get into Facebook now. We won't get into that today. But I'm only on Instagram, which I found out was, again, the grace from God, huge blessing for me, because I don't know if I would have been able to handle looking at everybody's posts in the wake of Friday's decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
well, to add to that,
yeah,
David Limbaugh convinced me to get off of social media. So I went on for a minute when I got home on Friday night, or on Saturday morning, actually. I went on for a quick minute and immediately jumped off.
Yeah.
Because it was that bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had conversations with people who found themselves incredibly frustrated with the rhetoric that was being posted by Christians, by both sides, and they're like, I can't do it. Yeah. I gotta get off.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that, but I do look at what people have to say on Instagram. I'm still on Instagram. I found it's not as divisive. It still can be.
Yeah.
It's not as bad. And a lot of people express concern that medically necessary procedures to protect the life of the woman would no longer be readily available, right?
not
And
true.
so that's not true. But here's what I've found. I've done a little bit of digging in and reading what people much smarter than me have written on it. I've actually read a book called The Secular Creed by not Rachel, Rebecca McLaughlin is her name.
Oh, yes.
It's an excellent
Yeah, okay.
book. It's put up by the Gospel Coalition, and one of the things she addresses is talking about how women's rights are human rights, and within that mantra includes abortion. And what a lot of people, our generation and younger, what they have in their mind of Christians is The Handmaid's Tale. If you've ever watched The Handmaid's Tale,
Yeah.
it's a story that it was a book originally, and it's been turned into a television series on Hulu. My wife and I have watched it, where it's this dystopian society, a pseudo-Christian cult takes over America and calls it Gilead, right? And they turn these incredibly fertile women into handmaids. They wear red dresses and capes and white bonnets, and their commander has sex with them while their wives watch, right?
Sounds like
And
the
so-
FLDS.
Yeah, it sounds like
that
that documentary.
Yeah, mhm.
Yep. Oh yeah. It's a lot like that.
Yeah.
Again, the whole basis of it's this cult that roots its societal structure in Scripture, but it's a complete misreading of Scripture. So for somebody who's never grown up going to church, if they don't understand the gospel,
Yeah.
they're left with this picture of this is what Christians believe, right? Where we don't. We don't at all.
Right.
So if I believe that the overturning of Roe v. Wade was leading to that,
Yeah.
I'd be scared too.
What is that show called again?
The Handmaid's Tale.
Handmaid's Tale.
Handmaid's Tale. So
Never heard of it.
women are concerned for their rights. Many women are scared. They're brokenhearted. Scripture does say that God is near to the brokenhearted. It doesn't give any conditions to which that cause that broken heart.
Right.
He just is. So
Yeah.
we can do a lot of good by moving towards somebody in their pain and not telling them what they need to think or believe, and just hear their story
Yeah.
and seek understanding. And then when the time's right, the Holy Spirit can open up those opportunities to speak to them.
Right.
Sure.
But yeah, so I've been processing that, thinking about
Well,
that.
I just want to mention too, the ending of Roe v. Wade does not cause, like, it doesn't necessarily outlaw abortion in even the states that ban abortion. Like,
Right.
if the pregnancy could cause the woman to die, like, there still is abortion technically to like end the procedure. Like that, it doesn't outlaw that.
Right.
It doesn't outlaw.
It's going to enforce strict, significant restrictions of what you can do in certain states. So
Yeah, I
there's
mean,
some
like,
states that
even the
won't outlaw it. Some will go like, I'm putting far more restrictive restrictions versus
Texas flat out banned it, but it still doesn't
Right.
ban like the terminally ill or like pregnancies or anything like that. It's still like, if it's a major risk to the mother and the baby is still not like fully formed, it's still like an option on the table.
Right.
Just saying, just want to point that out. But the other thing with that too is like, I lost my train of thought. Never mind.
Now we can come back to
Yeah,
that.
that's fine.
One of the things I was hoping to do is for our listeners who really don't know much about what happened, I would like to go into some details,
Absolutely.
right?
Sure.
And kind of talk about the court ruling and some of the decisions that they made. And as Christians, pastors, apologists, Bradley, another Christian in here. Do you know what? We're all theologians,
Yep.
period. Some might just know more than the other person. So
Yeah,
I didn't
everyone-
mean that, Bradley. That sounded really mean. I apologize for that.
Everyone is a theologian.
yeah.
I know more about politics than you, so
Yeah,
it's okay.
politician. That's true. He knows more about politics than me.
Political science twice.
So basically, what we find in 1973, which is Roe versus Wade, they allowed abortion up to the point of viability, which to them they defined it at the end of the second trimester.
Yeah,
Now, which is very interesting. And I'm getting this from Alito's leaked documentation. I've read the 95 pages that was leaked and kind of took out bullet points for the podcast to keep it within
yeah, because I
not
don't think
2
the-
hours.
I don't think the actual
Common person has read through
Well, I don't think the actual commentary is out yet, like the official.
Correct, yes.
Right.
It looked like it was a rough draft, but close to the final.
Yeah, it wasn't like the first stage of rough draft. It was
Right.
like third stage. rough
exactly.
draft.
And so what that did was, which is really interesting because back in the day with Roe versus Wade, I was doing some research on this, and this was written by Justice Blackmun. The majority decision of these terms, because what they did, they divided the trimesters, because 9 months into 3 trimesters. He said the majority decision to define these terms was completely, strictly arbitrary. This was by one of the justices himself.
Wow.
Which is a very interesting thing. And that's like literally a quote from him that Alito referenced. Yep. And so what we have is in 1992 we have Planned Parenthood versus Casey, and it threw out sort of the trimester idea. And there's a new rule that said you can't put any restrictions of any what they call undue burden on women's right to have an
does that
abortion.
mean?
That's a very good question.
It's not defined, is it?
And so viability wasn't defined in trimesters anyway. Viability was defined as to any undue burden. So any undue burden. So that could be like, it's going to cost me financially.
It's not the right time for me.
It's not the right time for me.
Right.
And so this new law like brings it back to like the states, right? Which is really important. And in my opinion, I think should be the case. I think we should leave it to the consensus of the population, and this does a few things, right? For me, the biggest thing it does, it's like, do you know what? Now I can go out and start persuading people. Now you have to convince the other people that your position is right, and so
because you're not arguing against a base fact of the country.
Correct. Which, as we know, judges can fail, right?
Right.
And so the key question that Alito kind of pointed out was this: does the Constitution, rightly understood, that's key here, and there's 2 sort of categories in that, contain the right to have an abortion? So that's the main key question. Does the Constitution, rightly understood, contain the right to have an abortion? And so there are 3 considerations that were taken in to make this decision. The first consideration is this: is the right to abortion in the Constitution? And there's 2 categories: implicitly or explicitly. Explicitly means like just face value.
It's clear.
Does it say you have the right to have an abortion? And he's like, this is just clearly no, right? It's just clearly false. And so the question is, does it implicitly say it? Can we read it through what the Constitution is saying? And now this is where I think we need to stop and talk about a fundamental problem. And it's a hermeneutical problem. And I was thinking about this more. I was listening to some philosophers out there.
How do you interpret an ancient document?
Sure. So there's two camps when it comes to this sort of hermeneutical. And for those who don't know what that means, it's sort of like hermeneutic is how you sort of the method of interpretation. And so I think the day and age played a huge consideration into what was happening. And so the two camps of the hermeneutic considerations are original intent, which, as someone who likes to study history and philosophy, original intent is extremely important.
Absolutely.
Or there is like this: it's a living, breathing, malleable document where I can change it, I can do this. But what we find from the forefathers is this idea that the Constitution doesn't create rights, right? It recognizes them.
Yeah, it
That's a huge
recognizes-
difference,
yeah.
distinguishment. And if it's not implicit or explicit, then it's no, period. And so the question then is, implicitly, do you think you can just sort of mold it to what you want it to say? Or did the original intent of the authors mean it to be that specific thing?
Right.
Which is a huge thing when it comes to precedents, which Alito referred to. And then so what he showed is the face value reading, the explicit was no. Implicit, those who think it's implicit hold the burden of proof, a very heavy burden of proof. You just can't say, oh, it's there somewhere, which is very interesting. I'm going to quote here, right, from the actual release document. This is what they said after, and I believe it was 1992, Planned Parenthood versus Casey. I'm going to quote this, right? It's somewhere in the Constitution, and specifying its location is not of paramount importance.
Huh.
Quote, unquote.
Who's that from?
That's for one of the justices that Alito is quoting from the end result released by the court. That's literally quote unquote.
So that's like me saying
It's somewhere in
It's
there.
somewhere in the Bible.
somewhere in the Bible it says I can punch you in the face. I don't know where, but it is
In
in
all
there.
seriousness, I'm literally like I'm just quoting Alito right here, and he's quoting
That's
Right.
the
nuts.
justices.
Quoting them
yes.
back.
And so,
Yeah.
which is very interesting because the history of the Constitution was these rights were not created by the writers or the forefathers, right?
Yeah,
it
they
was a
just recognized-
recognition
They were
of
recognized.
God-given rights.
by common law and natural law,
Yeah.
which is very, very important. And which is very interesting because in 1972, 56 of 50 states had a law prohibiting abortion, and there was literally no moral consensus that this was okay, which is very, very interesting. So all the states recognized
In
that
what
it
year?
wasn't implicit or explicit from 1972, a year before Roe versus Wade,
passed.
which is very interesting. Yeah. And so what they did is like, well, maybe we can find it in some of these like amendments, right?
Right.
And the 1st, 4th, 5th, 9th, 14th, there's all these arguments but they just didn't work. Even back in the day, it didn't work, right? Which was very, very interesting to me. And so that was the first consideration, and there's way more in his writing about that. There's way more in the literature about that. Is it implicit or explicit? And so far, the burden, one, explicit is just false, right? It's just no. It
not in
doesn't
there.
just flat out say it. So does it allude to it, right?
Right.
And so far, none of the arguments can prove with the heavy weight of burden that it alludes to it. No freedom, no privacy, none of those.
Well,
And I think it was. I was going to say, I think it was Kavanaugh who was quoted as saying that the Constitution is neither pro-choice nor pro-life. It just does not speak to it.
Yeah.
In 1973, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you know who she is, right?
Yeah.
This is what she thought. She thought the court decided wrongfully, and she quoted, "They overstepped with this decision."
Huh.
I'm
Yeah, that's right. I remember her saying
So
that.
even Ruth Bader goes like, "No, like that was a bad decision."
Yeah, she had said that it wasn't it was like it wasn't infallible. Like the amendment or
Which is
Roe
gonna
v.
go-
Wade
yes.
wasn't infallible. Like she was like she's like I'm pro-choice, but Roe v. Wade is a bad argument because it's so weak.
But exactly, and so he uses that later on in his document, which is very interesting to me because I still think the hermeneutic of it's malleable, and I can read what I want into it. Is
Right.
Comes from, I mean, it's from 1973. It comes from like this in almost like this new age enlightenment from the 60s,
Right.
where relativism and just like I can decide what my truth is, and we saw that. Like we even see that within sort of the Jesus movement within the church, where they're interpreting scripture not to the original intent of what Paul was trying to say.
Totally subjective.
Even when Paul said, "This is what I'm saying," and they're like, "Well, I think that's more metaphoric. I think that was," and I think it was a child of the 60s and the 70s,
Right.
that this belonged to it. And I think
Get on
there's
board with that.
other backdoor reasonings.
Well, you have the sexual revolution too
Yep.
that bears quite a bit of responsibility in Roe versus Wade being legalized in the first place.
Yeah.
And it promised liberty for both men and women. But to quote McLaughlin from the Secular Creed, she says this is actually a poisoned chalice
Yep.
that women have been drinking from.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it created these scenarios where men actually could do whatever they wanted with women.
Yeah.
Because it was a free for all for them.
Yeah.
They're just giving into their base level desires. Have sex with who I want when I want. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Anyway.
to the opposite point of that too, I've always thought that Roe v. Wade was a embodiment of extreme feminism. Like it's like
I think
it's,
there's also an embodiment of racism going on, but I
Sure.
don't have
Yeah.
all the data
No,
on
I-
that,
yeah.
especially
Yeah.
with some leaked documents from the 1900s. It's very
Yeah.
no, I
Well,
agree with that. But
very
but
interesting.
I mean, like as far as like it's all like a women's health It's like a women's health thing. You can't talk about it if you're a man because it's a woman's health thing, and like I think it's funny because now it's like we can't define what a woman is, but then we get into the point where it's a women's health thing, and you can't talk about it unless you're a woman, but we don't know what a woman is.
No.
So
if I
there's that
make a claim to be a woman, then I can talk about it.
Women have gained a lot of rights that were recognized to them that I think the
Yeah.
Constitution held.
Yeah.
I just really pray
Sure.
they don't give those up.
Right. Yeah, and this is what I find really, really interesting to me is that the very notion that women's rights are human rights, that women have bodily autonomy, which in the majority of cases I firmly agree with. Like, I believe women should have the right to choose. They should have the right to choose, and I mean this.
Choose what?
To choose not to have sex.
Oh.
To choose to choose not to be coerced
100%.
into having sex.
To choose to be married or not married.
To choose to be married or not married. But once you've crossed a certain line,
yeah,
and you have a life inside of you, I don't believe you have the right to take that life. And now, what is interesting to me is that the very idea that women are considered equal to men and that they are human beings.
It's fantastic.
It's a fantastic thing, and it has its roots in Christianity. You cannot get there unless you have the revolution of Jesus 2,000 years ago, who treated women with unprecedented dignity, worth, and value that was not afforded to them in the culture. Upwards of 2/3 of the early church were women. Why? Because they were being treated in the church that they were not being treated in the outside culture. Yeah. This is from a historian.
They were the people he was speaking to on the Sermon on the Mount.
Yep. Let me share a direct quote from historian Tom Holland. He's a Christian, but he's a historian.
I love Tom Holland. Yep.
He says
Spider-Man.
Not the same Tom Holland, but yes, I love that Tom Holland too, for different reasons. He says the origins of this principle, he's talking about the truth that men and women are equal, lay not in the French Revolution, nor in the Declaration of Independence, or the Constitution, nor in the Enlightenment, but in the Bible. And he talks a little bit about how the rights of women were not the same as rights of men back in the biblical times. They didn't really have any.
Yeah.
And he said that men in the Greco-Roman culture no more hesitated to use slaves and prostitutes to relieve themselves of their sexual needs than they did to use the side of the road as a toilet, right? And so to think about the world that women lived in back then is absolutely horrible. So for people to say Christianity is bad for women's rights is false. It's
Correct.
Absolutely incorrect. You might have a caricature of what a Christian is based on The Handmaid's Tale or something else that you might have read or some weird cultic offshoot that has nothing to do with the gospel. But Christianity at its roots, when we're rightly understanding what Scripture teaches, this is why hermeneutics is important, right? It is very, very good and very necessary for women's rights.
Yeah.
So
the second consideration that they took in was this question: is the right to abortion rooted in our nation's history? And let me just read you some of the statistics he's laid out. In the latter half of the 2nd century, there found absolutely no support. In constitutional law, the right to obtain abortion was held by 0%. Just more earliest talk of this idea was only found a few years before Roe versus Wade. Here's another one. Abortion had long been a crime in every single state. He says there's a clear moral consensus in the opposite direction. In the 13th century, abortion was a crime, and common law differed in punishment. So there was none endorsed the practice, quote unquote.
just difference in
In 1803, made abortion illegal for all stages of pregnancy. In 1910, all but one state criminalized abortion at all stages of pregnancy. Overwhelming consensus was against. As a matter of fact, there historically is no deeply rooted history and tradition of the states allowing abortion. It is not rooted in the history of this country at all. And he goes, and he laid out so many more facts to the opposite of what people argue that it's rooted in history. Right. And when you dive into the history, which I did a little bit, it's so mind-blowing. Alito, I mean, he's dead on when it comes to the answer, is it rooted? He goes, no, absolutely not. Here's the history.
I mean, heck, even in the history of like the world, even among the pagan societies, like abortion was not common. Like you go back however many years you want, like yes, abortion's always been around, but it's not like it hasn't been commonly accepted until the last 100 years.
Yes. And so the third consideration he said is this: does the right to abortion supported by other precedences? Because that's the big thing, right? So let me read you what he quoted from the justices from the Casey trial back in 1992. Quote unquote, The heart of liberty is the right to define one's own concept of existence, of meaning, the universe, and the mystery of human life. Let me read that again.
Yeah.
The heart of freedom, which is there's other multiple issues, is the right to define one's own concept of existence, of meaning, the universe, and the mystery of human. It is put in each individual's person to define what existence means, meaning means, the universe means, and life means.
So everything is subjective.
That's what they said. Everything is relative to one's own personal circumstances, which is philosophically terrible. Terrible. And my doctorate's literally in this work right now. This is what I'm going to quote Alito here. This is what he says. You're free to think what you want about existence, but you're not always free to act according to your beliefs.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Right. Well, and your freedom has an end. And it's when you are harming another life.
100%. And everyone would agree with that.
Yes. Everyone would agree with that with
Except
life outside the womb.
if it goes to this undue burden which Casey put in place. So one of the concerns was this idea of stare decisis, right? Have you guys heard of this term? Basically, stare decisis is a respect for earlier precedents in the law, which is very important, right?
Sure.
Which is very important because there's a presumption that they've done their work. They're educated in this topic. And that's a clear thing. That's a good thing to recognize. But he gives 2 points why he goes, this doesn't work in this case. And I think it's very brilliant. He goes, 1, there's a difference between a court case that's settled and a court case that's settled right. And what he says is even if a court case is settled and it's wrong, stare decisis should not put wrongness in front of being settled. We ought to go back and settle it correctly.
Right.
Which is, just take it as a parent, right? Imagine if you did something incorrect and you're like, crap, I let my kid do this in the first place.
You don't keep letting them do it.
You don't keep letting them do that.
Right.
And so if it's settled incorrectly, even if there's precedence that it's settled, it should not stand in the wake of settling it correctly.
Yeah,
the court is not infallible, period.
Just to go with that, I mean, if you just take working at your day job, if you're doing something wrong, you were trained wrong, it's not an excuse to keep doing it. Like your boss is going to hate you if you keep doing it that way. You got to learn the right way to do it. 100%.
And here's the last one. I found it's a very philosophical, wonderful argument. He goes, the court has precedence over precedence. And what he means by this, the court has a fundamental, this is what he says, the court has a fundamental precedence to change certain sort of laws that came in over the precedence of those laws. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's a fundamental right that the court holds.
Well, I understand what you're saying. I don't agree with what you just said. But
you disagree.
Right, yeah. Well, say it again.
Well, it's the Supreme Court.
What he's saying is...
you're saying that they said it here?
Yes.
Okay.
No, what I'm saying is I think it's a good argument.
Oh, go ahead.
What I mean by that is he goes, the court has a more fundamental right to overrule bad precedents.
Oh, yeah,
and
absolutely.
precedence has a right to stay.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's what he goes. He goes.
I interpreted that differently.
Oh, he goes. The court has a more fundamental precedence, and that I can overrule your precedents.
Sure.
And he goes. That's just foundational to our system. And so
that's why you have the Supreme Court.
Precedence is important. Exactly. Precedence is important because we should assume, and if it's a good decision. And there's plenty of things that the court should overrule, right? Thankfully, that separate but equal, which was ruled legal, constitutional, was then overruled, but precedence wasn't upheld
we would all agree
because
that
it was terrible.
We're glad it was overruled.
100%. So there are plenty of examples for for overruling it and not overruling.
And the thing with me too is that people are treating this as it's either a victory for pro-life advocates and the unborn, or it's a victory for pro-choice advocates and women.
Yes.
That is an altogether false dichotomy right there.
Yeah.
I think it's a loss either way because we have to talk about this.
Yes, it is. And I firmly believe that if the gospel of Jesus Christ isn't good news for all, it's not good news at all.
Yes.
Right? So if it is not good news for women and the unborn, it's not good news. Right? If it's not good news for the teenager who made a bad decision and is scared of this life that she's faced with raising, and it's not good news for that life, it's not good news.
Yeah.
If it's not good news for the single mom who's struggling to pay her bills and put food on the table for her kids, and the child that's in her womb,
Yeah.
it's not good news.
Yeah.
So are you saying that this isn't good news based on those two scenarios?
No, I'm saying it should be good news for women and for the unborn.
Okay, which
you don't
I believe it is.
They don't have to. They don't have to be pitted against one another. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay.
And the problem is, because this has been so politicized, we've pitted these two things against one another instead of trying to understand where we can all find points of agreement. And I think we need to look through some of the facts. Ryan laid out some of those important facts.
Yeah.
I want to share with you some details that have come straight from an abortion provider's website regarding the procedure that is done. And so I'm going to read this.
Is it?
If you have young listeners,
This is now the time to click off.
you can cover their ears. Okay, this is PG-13 here. So if it's early enough, the mom can take medicine to abort the pregnancy, but between 6 to 14 weeks along. Okay, this is the method. The vagina is cleaned with liquid soap. A shot to numb the cervix is given. The cervix is dilated, which means it's opened up by stretching. A tube attached to a suction machine is put into the uterus. The uterus is then emptied by suction. Okay, that's what this means. The baby is vacuumed out of the womb. Okay. Next, a tool called a curette is used to scrape the wall of the uterus, and this removes, this is their words, not mine, any products of pregnancy that remain. Okay? So if you have children's ears covered, you can uncover them. And now add to that the potential complications that come into play for the woman who had this procedure done.
Yeah.
Physically, damage to the womb or cervix, excessive bleeding. Now, let's be clear. This doesn't happen with all women. Correct. Right? It's a low percentage.
It's still more common than it should be.
Even if it's a remote possibility, why would you want it? Risk it?
Well, they always say safe and legal abortions, but abortions are rarely safe.
Yes. So continuing on, there's scarring on the inside of the uterus, sepsis or septic shock, uterine perforation, infection of the uterus and the fallopian tubes, and death. And what's more common is the mental health issues that arise from women doing this, right? Some women report having symptoms similar to post-traumatic stress disorder, right? She has regret, grief, sadness, depression, anxiety, guilt, shame, suicidal thoughts. So if we're going to say this is a loss for women's rights, and we're going to say we're for the rights of women, why would we promote a procedure that even had the remote possibility of doing this to her physical and mental state?
Can I add two things here?
Yeah.
So I don't know the exact statistic, but I remember it was like a FDA kind of article. It wasn't a biased article, but it said that the suicide rate of women rose after abortion. So like it was above 30%.
Wow.
But it's a lot. It is it's more of a mental issue after the fact than a physical issue. Most women that have abortions really don't do very well mentally. And it deteriorates the more abortions you have as well. It also adds to the lack of pregnancy further. Like if you have an abortion, you're less likely to be pregnant in the future.
Right.
Which is bad for a lot of these younger women who are having abortions at a young age, and they're saying, "Oh, I'm not ready. When I'm married, I want to have a baby later on," and then later on they can't have a baby because of the abortion.
Right.
I think that's something that doesn't get talked about nearly enough.
Yeah, and the pro-choice camp, what they'll sometimes do is they'll try to differentiate. These are the terms they'll use between a human being and a human person, right? They'll say that the life inside the womb. I have some
interesting thoughts about that.
Yeah, so they'll say the life inside the womb is a human being, but they're not yet a human person, which I don't know how you distinguish those things. But anyway,
can I just say, even if they're right that it's not a human person, and it like the
Which
human
they're
being
not.
and human
Not
person
get
are
into that,
completely
yeah.
different things. Even if that was true,
Mm-hmm.
you're still like ending a potential life.
Right.
Whether you believe you're killing a baby or not, like that is the way that people are brought into the world, and you are stopping them from being brought into the world. Even if we're not using terms like murder and killing babies, which is like big talking points, but like we're just saying you are stopping somebody from existing.
Yep.
Like I don't understand how you can be okay with that.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And even the change of terminology, saying, are you more comfortable killing a baby or a neonate?
A what?
A baby or a neonate?
I don't know
Which
what that
one?
is.
It's the neonatal unit in a hospital.
Oh, that's a red herring.
Yeah, it's a red herring.
Complete red herring.
It's changing a term so it sounds more clinical.
Yeah.
He's like, of course you're not going to kill a baby, but
Yeah.
if it's a
If
it's a fetus, if it's a neonate, then whatever.
Well, sure, you might. It's like Sophie's Choice, right? She had to choose her son or daughter to die in a concentration camp, but that doesn't mean she had any less value placed on her daughter.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there's that. Yeah, it's a complete red
And
herring.
another thing with that too is like I saw on
That's a movie, just to let you guys know.
I know.
Yeah,
I saw I saw on TV. There was like a lady on like NBC News or whatever, and she was talking about how she has a bunch of people in her family that are like disabled mentally or physically, and she was like, "Well, if we could stop that in the future, you know, by aborting them as a like, I don't understand that argument either because are you saying that we should just kill the disabled? Like, if you're saying we should stop them from ever
well,
being
there are
disabled.
countries that do.
Yeah.
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 I mean, Nazi Germany would kill if you had paralyzed legs, but were completely fine everywhere else. They would just killed you.
Well, it's this evolutionary idea of survival of the fittest.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so you can't hold to the story of evolution and hold to these virtues that came to you from Judeo-Christian values at the same time. You have to lean towards one or the other.
Yeah.
But what I find interesting is that there are certain capacities that the pro-choice camp says that have to be in place for to be considered human.
personhood?
So let me just
Human
lay
or person?
a person.
Okay.
A person. So
I'd
somebody
hope not human. 'Cause
Somebody
we know that.
somebody that cannot be aborted.
Yeah, we're
right.
not primates as a zygote.
Right.
Yeah.
So here they are. Ready? Self-consciousness,
Yep.
the ability to communicate, self-reflective, the ability to reason, and the ability to respond to the outside world. Now, there are toddlers that don't have most of those things, and some will argue, okay, when the life is able to exist independently of the mother. Okay, well there's something problematic right there because
What does that mean?
my 4-year-old is still very much dependent on my wife.
Yeah. Some
As much as I-
16-year-old.
as much as my wife-
most 16-year-olds are completely dependent on their mothers.
As much as I wish my daughter was not as dependent on my wife as she was.
If by dependent you mean umbilical cord, you're then begging the question.
Again,
And I'm going to call you out on that.
Again, what about disabled people? Like,
Right.
what if you're bound to a wheelchair?
right.
What if you have autism? Like,
Some people in REM
it
sleep.
breaks down.
Some people in certain kind of anesthetic, coma, REM, like REM sleep, don't have consciousness like that.
I mean, even if
Yeah.
we're just talking about a baby here, well, let's say we take all those other scenarios out. I mean, to communicate with outside world, like, when does your wife start feeling the baby kick?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, babies have, they have awareness, like they can
Back in the
kick.
day, the Quakers called that quickening. As soon as you felt the baby kick, that means the baby was alive. Well, granted, they didn't have the science like we do, but
Right. Right.
Yeah, but I mean, you could feel the baby kick. The baby is, if the mother has a positive emotion, the baby will also have a positive emotion. Same with like a negative response. If the mother has a negative response to, let's say, coffee or something like that, which you're not supposed to drink, if you're pregnant, don't do that. But like,
especially not
if the
Death
mom,
Wish.
No,
Yeah.
no, don't drink Death Wish.
but if the mom has a negative reaction to, let's say, the weird coffee bubblegum flavor, versus some wonderful Death Wish coffee.
Yeah. Well, the
You know,
mom's life is
baby,
affected.
The baby also feels that as well. Like, they're like, yeah, I don't like that either, Mom. Thanks.
Well, yeah.
Thanks
So
for giving that to me.
back, Mike, to what you just said, if I can add some points here.
Sure.
I think it's Peter Singer. he wrote an article. He's a naturalist. I don't know if you heard of him.
Heard of him?
Yeah.
He's a philosopher, right?
Yeah,
I have a quote from him.
Do you? So you're probably going to say the same quote I'm going to say.
Go for it.
He's consistent, which I really appreciate from him. He said that the women should have the right up to 2 years to kill their child. If they want to define personhood as these type of capacities, which let me get into in a second, these type of capacities, then why not kill them up to 2 years old? And most people are going to go, ugh. But if you're philosophically consistent, you can't avoid these conclusions. But once again, I think I have a lot of notes on this. I think there's, and this is for we're not going to talk about them, but I think our listeners can think about this more. The question is personhood a part of our nature? According to like a philosophical understanding of personhood, it's attached to the nature in being, not functions and capacity.
Right.
Because what happens is, just because a young person can mature in the functions and capacity, you need to have things in what is called logical priority. Personhood first in order to have these capacities. Capacities of consciousness can't give you personhood. Personhood gives you consciousness.
Gotcha.
And this is just the philosophical literature. And even people like Singer recognize this. And so the key is like, there's a fundamental, like they try to get actualized versus unactualized capacities, and it just doesn't work because you need to have one personhood first there as a fundamental essence of the nature of humanity before you can have these capacities.
Now, let me give you another quote from Peter Singer that I pulled this from the Secular Creed. He says, "A week-old baby is not a rational, self-conscious being, and there are many non-human animals." He's a naturalist, right? He's an atheist, okay? There are many non-human animals, right? So he believes animals are humans, whose rationality, self-consciousness, awareness, and capacity exceed that of a human baby, okay? And he goes on to say that the life of a newborn baby is of less value than the life of a pig, a dog, or a chimpanzee. So to put it in practical terms, eating bacon is worse than infanticide.
Yes.
In his view.
Yep.
So sit with that for a minute, okay? And now let me share with you another quote. This was published in the Journal of Medical Ethics in 2012, where the author said this: "Both fetuses and newborns do not have the same moral status as actual persons. Therefore, they said after birth abortion, in other words, killing a newborn, should be permissible in cases where the newborn child is not disabled." So whether they're disabled or whether they're not, they're saying newborn killing is totally okay. This is in the Journal of Medical Ethics.
Yep.
And even pro-choice advocates, many of them, would not go this far. But when you begin to move the line on what is a human, there are all sorts of injustices that you can end up justifying.
Yeah.
So
I just think personhood's a bad argument.
Yeah, we're moving the line further and further, and we're going to see things like this happen if we don't see
where does it
change.
stop? Like, you know, if you know,
well,
if you're suddenly okay with Nazi Germany, like why not like, oh hey, my son is 16, he developed diabetes, which is not type 2 diabetes, which is not uncommon. Why don't we just kill him
and
too?
So,
so he doesn't have to live with it.
So they're like, first of all, it's not metamorphosis, right? The infant in the stomach has these capabilities. They're just not mature at the stage where the capabilities reveal itself.
Right.
They just don't randomly, once they hit 16, grow a capability. A capability is fundamental to the nature of the human that's in the body. It just matures at a certain stage. So you can't even just say when it gets the capability. It has the capability. It hasn't matured to reveal the capability yet. So I just think, but once again, like loss of one capability, two capabilities. What's the qualification of when it doesn't become a person anymore on this other side of the argument, which I just think is philosophically inept. I don't mean to be that harsh, but it just doesn't. You're going to wind up at conclusions that you can't live out the worldview consistently.
Yeah.
That's going to be the answer.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, and I don't want to cut this conversation short. I'm sure that we can probably have a part 2 on this, but I have to get home to my my wife and children. So, everybody, thank you for joining us for this conversation. I hope you're able to follow along with us and tuned in for the whole episode. Please be sure to stick around for next episode of the Caffeinated Christian Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe and give us a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcasts. You could also connect with us via Facebook or via Instagram at the Caffeinated Christian Podcast. Be sure to just reach out to us. We'd love to hear your feedback, future suggestions on potential episodes, feedback, or topics. Yeah, exactly. So whatever you would like us to do, you'd like to cover in the future, please let us know. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day.